I call the meeting of the Urbana Historic Preservation Commission to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Dossett?
Here.
Mr. Metcalf?
Here.
Ms. Novak?
Here.
Ms. Pagliuzzo? Mr. Seiler?
Here.
Mr. Shepard? And Ms. Smith.
Okay, we have a quorum, barely. Thank you. Changes to the agenda. I would like to add a summary of Preservation Month, if we could, under old business, just briefly. Anybody object to that?
Nope.
Okay. And next, we have approval of the minutes from our mini meeting on May 17th. Special commission meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those?
Just for your clarification, I don't know that we didn't all gather together and say, hey, Alice needs to write this. Or did we? I don't know.
No, I remember.
That's okay, maybe it wasn't quite that direct. But
Oh, for the letter?
right.
I had said ages ago I was going to write the letter. I mean, I think it's been going on for like a year.
The person who's not at the meeting writes the letter.
Yeah,
That's
no.
All right.
It's okay.
I think I mentioned that somewhere. I don't know if it made its way into the minutes, but
Yeah. No,
I heard that you had offered.
that's all
to do
fine.
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. All right. Any additions or corrections?
Well, this is in front of me. It's from Trent, and it has a couple of sort of like typographic sort of things.
But
You
for
have
the
this?
minutes, though.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's on the letter, right?
That's from the letter. I think
Yeah.
it's the letter, but I haven't tracked it down yet. So,
letter.
okay, that's the letter.
Yep.
I have no additions or corrections to the minutes.
Is that a motion that you'd
That's
like
a
to make?
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved as written. Thank you. We have no written communications. We're counting Trent?
yeah, I think Trent's that deals with the letter, so we can cover it then.
Okay, perfect. Audience participation. Audience member, would you like to speak to the commission? Just audience. Okay. Thank you for being audience. We have no continued public hearings and, oops, sorry. Trying to get organized, looking at the wrong thing. No continued public hearings, and now we have old business. So would you like to cover the Mumford letter?
Sure. So at the last meeting of the Preservation Commission, it was decided, since Alice, you had offered to write a letter regarding the Mumford letter, it was decided that we would have you do that, and then we would go over that at this meeting. Just for a little background on that, or for a little recap, the University of Illinois has a draft out of their new campus master plan, and on that master plan it showed the Mumford House, and then also another house, the manager's house for the experimental dairy farm, showed those buildings being marked for removal. So the impetus for writing this letter was to encourage the university to rethink that position of removing those buildings. So in front of us we have the letter that was drafted by Chair Novak, and do you want me to go through it at all, or should we just...
I don't think you need to
Okay.
do. And I'm happy to accept Trent's excellent typo check. Trent, the human spell check. And I'm certainly open, if anybody wants to change anything on the letter, I will not be offended. I considered it a draft, so.
Do you think we need to separate the two properties under discussion into separate paragraphs? And I guess
We could.
I mean, that begs the question too: is it worthwhile? Do we need to flesh it out more? Do they need more background? I asked this because I called over to the university. I wanted to find out a little bit more about the gentleman that we were writing the letters to, and Mr. Kim has been with the university 5 years, and Mr. Christie for 10.5. So, in terms of Mr. Kim may not actually be aware of the background And Mr. Christie may or may not have been directly involved with it because both of them are in positions that they were not originally hired into. They've moved up through the ranks. So I don't know how much background they need to know. And coming from us, I think that I don't know whether that adds anything to it or not. But I'm just throwing that out there.
I think that's a good point. I also worry about making letters that are too long and too detailed.
Right.
So somewhere there's a happy medium, but I can see if everybody agrees that I could split those, split the two buildings that we're talking about and add maybe a line or two on each one.
I have to admit that I've looked again on my hard drive, and I don't think I got a copy of the letter. So I knew that it was on the agenda for tonight, but I actually haven't read it. But
There you go.
I don't think I want to take the time right now because
Okay.
I trust you based on content. But I appreciate what Matt just said about making certain that we discriminate between areas of concern. So
Okay,
I apologize. I haven't had a chance to read it.
that's fine. If you think of anything else, that's fine too. So we're agreed that I'll make those changes. Anything else?
Well, is it possible to make sure that we get a copy to the Mumford descendant who's been in touch with us from the city?
Excellent.
We've brought it up a couple different times, but it would be nice so that she knows that we're taking some action in that regard.
Very good. Will do. Okay, I don't think we need any additional motions on that, so unless anybody else has anything to add on the letter.
Well, for clarification, Matt, are you suggesting that that Alice add something to the effect of, this was considered for demolition back in 2009 or whenever that was, and the university decided to preserve or mothball it at least, something like that?
Yeah, well, yeah, in terms of fleshing out what we were talking about for Mumford House, yeah, maybe the reference to the trustees, and these minutes are online, the audio is online that you can go back and listen to it. They agreed to fund the restoration of the building, or the rehabilitation, I'll use the proper word. But then obviously some money troubles came up, and the submissions for what the work would cost was significant, which I'm guessing is why they chose to mothball it at that point. But again, my point was just that they didn't have the background, so maybe that would be valuable.
Okay. Okay, any other comments or anything? And if I need help with a couple of sentences, you're available.
Always.
We know where to find you. Thank you. Okay, Historic Preservation Month. Since we were still kind of in the middle of things, I just thought it would be good to summarize and thank Matt for a fabulous lecture. I've heard nothing but rave reviews of your lecture, and I got to go on your tour, which was outstanding as well, too. I would say we had about 30 people maybe on the tour, I think.
Yes.
And then Brian Adams and I, on May 24th, did a session in the archives. We had at least 20 for that. And it was just really successful. So the thing that strikes me is, if we can muster the energy and the time to do this, we should be doing things more than just during Preservation Month, to whatever extent we can. And the library people were delighted with the turnout and the amount of activity. All the city directories were off the shelves and on the table, and it was really fun, and everybody was sharing information that they were finding about their properties. It was just really positive experience. So Anka Voss, the director of the archives, mentioned, it would be really nice if we could sponsor a regular Research Your Old House session, even if it's just quarterly or every other month. So, hopefully I'll look into what that might entail.
Is she thinking more in terms of a lecture of some kind, or some kind of like resource of the month? Or is she just thinking, hey, we can give you ideas because we've read 1,000 of these nominations? So you might look at that.
Yeah, we really didn't do a lecture. I mean, Anka gave kind of an intro about the resources up there, and then Brian and I just spoke briefly about certain kinds of resources and the order of things maybe, and then everybody just took off, and we went around helping people with Sanborns and bird's eye maps and city directories, and I felt like I'd only been there 5 minutes and the time was up, and we were getting kicked out of the library.
That's
So it was really really good. So,
So,
Did she want us to sponsor it? Is that like, and I don't
Well,
know
I
what that
think-
would look like for a
Yeah.
governmental body.
I think she would like, a couple of us to be there when we do it, I guess. And I don't know if we did it more often, if it wouldn't be nearly as well attended, or, I assume it would be better if we had some kind of regular scheduling of it, so that people would know what the pattern of it was to count on it. But the library is also really excellent at doing the flyers and things too, so they really do great promotional materials. So, so I don't know. It'd be nice to try something.
Yeah, I would think the word would get out and
Mm-hmm.
attendance increase.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was really cool because we didn't really have to do a lecture kind of thing or anything. We just kind of covered it generally. And I would think after a while that there'd be enough people that know the routine that maybe even the intro thing wouldn't be that necessary.
Yeah.
But so I may go on and work with Anka on seeing, at least setting up one more time during the summer if we can.
Well, and another time I think that might be good, at least in terms of targeting time when people are away, might be that week between Christmas and New Year's too, which I'm sure is other people want to rest and relax. But I would be glad to attend I'd be glad to attend a session during that.
Okay, you'll end up on a calendar very quickly, so,
That's okay.
okay.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm glad I will commit to that publicly. Yeah, because that's a good time for. I mean, it's between semesters. People often have vacation time at that time, and home and family people get inspired about the places where they live. So
Yeah,
it sounds to me as if the library was very welcoming,
absolutely.
and that's
Yeah.
always been the case when I've been up there
Yeah.
on that floor and ask help, even if it's just to try to like photocopy or make copies of historic documents. I mean, they've really got great resources up there, sort of AV sort of things. And so if there's some way that, I could help continue that cooperation, then I would be willing to try.
That'd be great. I should add that Trent was there as well, and he was kind of helping pull Sanborn maps and things for people as well. So, so there were 2 commissioners there. So, yeah, that'd be great. All right. Yes.
Before we move on from Preservation Month stuff, does anybody want to see pictures from the tour?
Sure.
Sure.
We hear there was a cute baby on the tour.
You may hear right. I don't know. There's definitely a baby. Okay, let's see if these come up good. How can I full screen this? Now, maybe I can open it with something else. Full screen.
Yeah, maybe that one.
Oh. Sorry, I should have. Maybe the media center will get. I guess worst case scenario,
Can just do it manually.
yeah, we don't do it full screen. Wow.
Ooh, TV on your PC, I don't think we want to go there.
Yeah. All right, let's just do it with this
Sure.
one. I'll see if is there a full screen? Okay, well, sorry about that. Okay, but as you can see, most of these people in this picture were actually going on the tour, not just walking by in the background.
And some of these folks had also been, I'm sure they were at Matt's lecture, but they'd also been at the archives research thing, or I forget which came first. Research
I think
and then this.
it was lecture,
The
research,
lecture.
tour. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
Yeah, this closed out the month.
yeah.
Then the first stop was in the middle of Ray Street. And then we moved along over to Green Street. And that's a nice action shot of Matt and the group. And a lot of these are people looking up at the buildings, as you can imagine.
Well, and we should thank the homeowner. Oh, there she is. I was going to say she brought the baby out and let everyone into the entryway,
Yeah.
which was absolutely beautiful. And
It was like we planned it.
yeah, yeah, but we didn't. And that was to me that was the really cool thing is that when people see these tour groups outside their house and they're willing to say, "Hey, come look at this foyer area." That's neat.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah, these people helped us with the last walking tour that
They
we
did.
had,
They were on that
too.
walking tour, I think, so.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we stopped there and had a really wonderful conversation, so thank you to the 209 folks.
Yes. And there's another nice tour leader. Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay, well, that
Oops.
didn't come out right. I looked at these earlier and they came out okay.
A stucco critique.
Well, there's the baby.
Oh.
Oops, how'd that sneak in there?
Oops, how'd that get there, yeah.
And then, what street is this on? Is this,
It's on Oregon.
Oregon, yeah, okay. That is one of the Frank Summers houses.
Hmm.
And here's the other one. And this wasn't a scheduled stop, right, Matt? You just like the looks
No,
of that
right,
house.
we were running out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't even get to the ones on the far part that I really wanted to get to. So, yeah, we were just going over some of the different forms of architecture that you would have seen as part of the. This was in reference to craftsman and bungalow forms and the arts and crafts movement, which could be a whole tour in and of itself. So, we'll file that one away for another year.
What? It's just a JPEG. Okay. Yeah, and so two of my favorite photos. This photo is supposed to be Matt up on the stoop. Since we were there, since the homeowner was actually on this tour, she let Matt go up and point stuff out on the stoop. I think that might be the last one. Okay. Shoot, and so yeah, my two favorite photos didn't come out there. I just looked at these earlier and they were fine. So
That's okay, it happens.
I can send those out because I really like those. Okay, well that's what I got.
Thank you for thinking of it, yeah.
Thanks for taking them.
Kevin, do we have the tech support time / whatever wherewithal to get these on the webpage for
Yeah.
the commission?
Get the photos
Get
up.
the photos? Yeah.
We can do that. I'll shrink them down because those
Yeah.
are probably like 5 megabytes
You know,
or each.
Quick
But-
narrative or whatever, just kind of count coup on the Preservation Month thing.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so we have or are we done with Preservation Month? Done celebrating? Every day's a celebration now. We have no new public hearings, no new business, and next is monitoring of historic properties. In reference to the minutes from the special meeting last time around, has anything happened regarding that sign in front of the Royer House?
I contacted the Green Street Realty, who's the property owner, and they said we definitely did not put that up ourselves. So they sent out an email, copied me on it, that said, please take that down. I'm not sure if it's come down yet, but
Okay. I'm sure some of us can check on it.
yeah.
Any other monitoring of historic properties? Nope. Okay, next is staff report, and in particular, the potential National Register Historic District in downtown Urbana.
Yes. So the idea for a National Register district downtown really came about because of two reasons. The first is that staff, myself and Libby Tyler, had some conversations with the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency back at the end of last year, where they said, we really think that Urbana has a really great downtown that we think could be on the National Register. So we started thinking about that at the staff level at that point. And then really at the same time, Dan Maloney, who bought the Cohen building on the corner of Race and Main, on the northeast corner there, he was in the process of coming up with a redevelopment agreement with the city. And as part of that process, he said, well, I'm planning on keeping most of the historic character of the building intact. Are there any preservation incentives that I could tap into? And we said, well, at the time, since it's not on the National Register, he could tap into the 10% tax credit for rehabbing old commercial buildings. I think anything before 1930 or somewhere in the 30s can qualify for that for commercial properties. And 10% is great, but wouldn't 20% be even better, which is what you can get if it's on the National Register. So Dan was he contacted the IHPA and was talking to them about the possibility of seeing if his building could be individually listed, but he also asked staff if we could look into creating a whole district, which would benefit more property owners downtown as well. So we went on a tour at the beginning of April. Alice was there, Libby Tyler was there, Lori Pearson was there, IHPA was there. We had a great tour of downtown, of the Cohen Building as well. This was really one of the preliminary steps to going forward with a National Register nomination. And after that, we heard back from IHPA a few weeks later, and they said, we think that, with a couple of tweaks to the boundary that you had proposed, we think that downtown is a strong candidate for listing on the National Register. So that's essentially where we are at. The district that we're looking at would be around 40 buildings, and then the next step is to actually prepare and submit the nomination. And nominations get heard. There are only 3 times a year that the committee, or that the council, the Illinois Historic Sites Advisory Council, meets. And they have a 90-day lead time where you have to have your nominations in 90 days before they meet to give them ample time to review those nominations. So the next meeting that we could potentially get on would be at the end of October, but we'd have to have something submitted, or we'd have to have the nomination submitted by the end of July. Right. So Lori asked me to mention so being a National Register district, I think we consider it to be a win-win situation. If you want to tap into the historic tax credits, they're there for you if you rehabilitate your building according to the Secretary of the Interior's standards. And if you don't want to adhere to those standards, then you don't have to. You just can't tap into that tax credit. So it's really a good incentive. Save 20% on the building rehab if you want to adhere to the preservation standards. So in terms of actually preparing the nomination, we've discussed on the staff level, we've discussed possibly hiring outside help in the form of a consultant or an intern. It'd need to be somebody who is really knowledgeable in this field. Another option would be to do it in-house with assistance from volunteers. And we're not really sure how to pursue, but end of July is right around the corner, so we'd like to make a decision pretty soon here.
What is it that you're looking for
How do you mean?
in terms of volunteers?
That's a good question. I guess probably for some folks to take on some of the research and maybe take in, if we would need photos and such, and writing up of the narratives for either for individual buildings or for whole groups of buildings. I spoke to Andrew Heckenkamp earlier this week. He's at the IHPA. He does the National Register, or he helps out. I guess he's sort of the liaison for National Register help with the state. And he said, or he's going to send me different nominations that have all been approved over the past decade or so that we can look at those and get an idea of what level of commitment we need to make. But he said it is a pretty broad spectrum. Some nominations get into the individual building detail for every property in the district, which, as you can imagine, would take more time than the type of nomination that could look at a group of buildings and describe their significance. So, yeah, in terms of effort, I'm not sure. It could be less or more.
So because this deadline is so tight, then the next possible date would be, do you know when their next quarterly meeting is?
So I would imagine it would be in or 4 months after that, so probably February, because it's a whatever try. It's not quarterly; it's try.
Mm-hmm.
Surely, yeah, yeah. So probably not until February.
So is there anybody, I mean, is there, I'd like to see it done as quickly as possible too, but it's still relevant if it's not, if we don't make it until the next meeting though?
Correct.
Can I make a comment? Where are we at with the potential for a design review overlay district in downtown Urbana? And by implication, well, not implication, I just said that. You know, it's win-win, but does it just feel good? You know, I appreciated the picture suite because I could, again, sort of like turn over in my mind what happened to a facade on just the other side of the community center for arts on Main Street, and think that, at least by the way I read the materials that I could spend from the stuff that you sent to us, that this designation really offers no protection to historic assets whatsoever. So this kind of doesn't sound like us. I mean, that sounds harsh, I'm sorry. So are we making any progress on a design review overlay district?
So for the design review district, I've been heading up that process, and we've started drafting those guidelines. We've been meeting with building owners and people who have developed things downtown. Mostly it's been redevelopment because there hasn't been much new put in the past few decades. But we've been meeting with folks, and I'd say that the meetings have been very positive, and so I think we have a good idea and good direction on what those guidelines will look like.
Any kind of timeline for when you think you'll be ready to present those to the commission?
With Kevin working on this as well as the district, and since the district deadline is July 29th, if we want to have any chance of making that date, I haven't told him this yet, but I was hoping he would focus on that and not the downtown design district.
Right. Yeah, well, and that's why I'm putting you all in this position, is because the design review district, of course, is what gives us true protection of the buildings downtown. Now, I mean, obviously, if someone can get a 20% federal tax credit for improvement that they do, then that's also helping us keep the buildings downtown. But I would just caution you about extending yourself in that direction when the most important work that I think we have to do as a commission is that design review district. So.
If people, I mean, you're right that there's not inherently any design review or any protection in National Register, but for people who elect to use the 20% tax credit, they have to follow the Secretary's standards. So
Yes.
that buys us 5 years. They have to keep it that way for 5 years.
Right, right.
So if people start to take advantage of the tax incentive, then it does buy us some limited term protection.
Right. Well, that was a question I was going to ask that wasn't really explicit in well, I've closed it now, but the National Register stuff that I saw. It talks about federal money in one part, and I literally just did close this reference. I apologize. It talks about federal money. Is the tax credit considered to be federal money being used at the property?
It's not money.
Right. It's foregone money, right?
Right. So well, I guess I'm questioning what you just said, Alice, because it appeared as if the protection had to do with a property owner that accepted federal money for the rehab of a project.
No,
Does the tax credit give us the same possibility for protection as if, they accepted something from a block grant or something like that?
yeah, I mean, there's no federal money as in a grant connected with National Register. So the only, the only thing that's really out there is the 20% tax credit.
Okay.
It's a federal tax credit.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes there's funny money that's out there at the federal level that applies to things that are on the National Register, so it's good to have things already listed. Back probably at least a decade or more, there was some transportation money that was set aside for historic resources, and they had to be on the National Register, so you saw a rush of people doing train stations and brick streets and things that were transportation related. But as you can see from the memo that, the process is really long. It takes, at least 6 months to get something through the process. So if it's already listed, then, you're good to go on anything that comes up along the way.
Right. Right. Thank you.
I think there's something to be said too for incentivizing the businesses to go after that tax credit, because if it is supposed to be part of if what they do needs to follow the Secretary of the Interior standards, at least there's kind of there's an incentive to continue to preserve the historic nature of the building, even if it is in the short term.
Absolutely. And someone like who's leveraging work like is being done on the Cohen building now is going to see that as an asset, and these companies fold that into their project management, their budgeting package for that. We learned quite a bit about that when the company from Indianapolis was going to develop the 200 South Vine block. They fold the TIF in with what they can leverage at private banks and all of that. So, I get that, but if there's a property for sale, like the second one in from the corner at Race and Main on the south side of the road, that carries a high, a high anticipated price, nobody buys that and starts working on it, then it's going to continue to degrade. And, my concern overall with downtown is that I don't want to see other buildings follow the model of the facade, that's by the Community Center for Arts, because we've lost that building. So I think it's, I understand that the tax credits are there for a reason and that people will use them, but I don't know how many of those businesses along Main Street will. And the much harder thing to do is going to be to leverage the design overlay. And so I just hope we can continue to work on that, because I think that's the true protection for the area. So.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Are you able, if you had help, as of yet not defined, is there a, could half of it be done in-house, or what are we looking at, or how do we?
Yeah, I guess once we get those examples from IHPA and we can see what type of commitment we'd need to make, then we could probably make that assessment a little bit better.
Okay.
I mean, the hope would be, of course, that we have a lot of it done already and that we could do a lot of it in-house, but without knowing for sure what they might be looking for, it's difficult to speculate.
Right. So how soon might Andrew be sending those samples?
By the end of this week, I would think. So
And he's sending electronic samples, I assume? I hope.
we
One never-
didn't go over that, but
One never knows.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they'll be in an email.
You mentioned having had some conversations with some of the business owners, others that may be a little bit more reluctant to follow this course, even though you're getting the tax incentive. Do we have any resources that kind of outline other cities within the state or even the region, because it's a national thing? So, I mean, if we could pick something in Massachusetts, I suppose, but that something from the Midwest might carry a little bit more weight. That would say, hey, here's what the success was. And two, ultimately, like the broader governing body would probably want to see that too. So maybe there's some value in saying, hey, this is what happened in, I don't know, Muncie or whatever, some city of a comparable size that did this.
There would definitely be an outreach component to this. It is very important to make sure people understand that this would not be a mandatory restriction. It would just be a benefit. So we will have to repeat that and go out and really do some targeted outreach. And having the success stories obviously would be helpful for that.
Okay.
Can I go ahead? Would that make it valuable maybe to, or wise, to hold a special meeting of this group that was kind of like a public hearing or something like that? I mean, is there any way that this group can help in that push, because you've got over 100 properties? Like, I don't know. There's
40.
How many?
40.
40, okay. Yeah, lots of pictures.
We could certainly consider that. I think generally it's easier, well, maybe not easier, but more effective to go to where people are rather than ask people to come to us. So I'm imagining that we'd be doing some more personal outreach. Certainly we could have a public meeting like this, but I think it's probably more effective to go to where the people are.
So, outreach. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm just brainstorming outreach during the First Friday things that are downtown or something like that.
That was the last time I talked to Dan Maloney, was at a First Friday about this, so
Yeah.
that would be consistent.
Yeah.
I guess for me, maybe, like I assume you would be willing to be in on the nomination part to some extent.
Yes, I can play a role,
Okay.
not the role, just to be
There's-
clear. But yes, I would be glad to volunteer.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
There's a huge difference in the detail of documentation, so it will be helpful to see, for example, so there are two main sections. There's the description section, and then there's the historic section that makes the case for the properties for the district. So for the 40 properties, we could do really short, 3-liner building description, or sometimes I've seen it done just as a spreadsheet, and it would just have materials, height, just a few things that are laid out, and that's a lot quicker way to get through it. I can see that IHPA might look at it and say, well, there are only 40 buildings in there. That isn't that many buildings. I mean, there are districts that are much, much larger than that, and then the spreadsheet does make sense. But but if several of us are chipping in, trying to help and not make things worse, trying to help, we'd have to do a not so detailed documentation version of, yeah. Well, so how should we leave things? When you get the samples, then, can we use that as a point of contact? I could see the archives thing was so successful, I could see that we could, spread the word out and try to get people together for a couple of evenings, have people focus on particular buildings, make a history of the different businesses that were in some of the buildings at certain dates, and then, we do that a couple of nights. We've probably got some information on each of the buildings that are in the district.
So should this body motion and vote on support for our staff in this effort for this? How is that at all important to anybody else?
I think.
I always like for us to stand on record,
Oh.
To me, that means you have a motion, you have a second,
Yeah,
and you
that's-
vote.
that's fine.
And you
Just
say,
don't-
we go for it, dude.
Just don't move that we're volunteering necessarily until.
No.
Or that we
no,
make
no,
this
no,
particular
no.
date. So
Yeah.
if you could be.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just.
Otherwise, just go for it.
I was just going to move that the Historic Preservation Commission supports staff's effort to create a National Register District, National Register of Historic Places District in downtown Urbana. Period.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, any more discussion? Is there anything else you need from us right now?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed, so we unanimously support the National Register District, so just let us know what we can do.
I promise I'll be a lot more positive from now on, Kevin.
Anything else from staff reports? Kevin? All right, no study session. Any announcements? Reminder, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but the National Historic Preservation Conference is in Chicago. It's called Past Forward, and it will be in November. I forget the exact dates. But you can, Matt just happens to have it in his phone.
I do. I'm
Sponsored by
hoping to
the
attend.
National Trust for Historic Preservation and lots of partner organizations in the state of Illinois, including Landmarks Illinois. So if you can only go to one conference, this is the one.
It's the week of, I think it's the 14th through the 17th of November. It's that week, and it ends on Friday the 17th.
Okay.
And if anybody is interested in going to that, please let me know, because I've been looking into the registration, and I think if we were to join at the organizational level, I think then individually it would be cheaper. So if we joined as an organization and even just one person went, I think it would be cheaper than just one person going. So, but I need to look into that more and look at our budget and everything. But
That may be also a good place to resource additional information about districts. If we happen to still be working on it at that point, I'm sure other people will have gone through the process.
Let's hope we're farther along by one way or another, but yeah, but good idea. Yeah, there may be examples of, another place to look for information on who's done a good job with districts is the National Main Street Center, which used to be part of the trust, maybe still is part of the trust, I'm not sure. But they keep lots of statistics on Main Street program communities, and usually there's some historic district that coincides with the parameters of the Main Street district, Main Street organization. Any other announcements? Okay, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.